She's back! Welcome back, Blue Snowball Chan. My fucking Blue Snowball was saved and rescued by the great K fucking Kyle, my buddy, the electronic savior of the goddamn masses. And not only did he fix Blue Snowball, he fixed her while fucking plastered. Fucking amazing. Okay, guys, well, that sort of like hyperactive, spastic, psychotic looking scene there was me celebrating the return of my Snowball. I don't know how anybody can fix anything plastered. But my buddy is a monster among men, so yes. If you have not given my buddy K Kyle or Crazy Kyle a subscribe, please do so. Give our company channel a subscribe too. Now, what this is about, what this live discussion is about today, is that I'm gonna do a bit of a discussion of Fairy Fencer, because I kind of want to get my Fairy Fencer fan base back up in action here. So let's go and get right into the meat of this discussion. Today we're doing an episode of Who Did It Better? Yeah, who did it better? And currently we're going to be discussing on this episode of Who Did It Better, we're going to be discussing Fairy Fencer F Advent Dark Force. Now, you probably are wondering what I'm talking about. See, usually I do a comparison between two games or two game franchises, but I figured today, before I started really doing the I Rank series, I started getting some of my other series up and running. And we're going to start with a inside of the game comparison, because the Fairy Fencer F Advent Dark Force's best aspect is their diversity in their story routes. They added a crap ton of new stuff to make the game main event worthy. So we're gonna go and give pretty much a summation of each route, what the route's themes are, and basically run through. Oh, and we're gonna also run through some spoiler territory, because we're also going to be discussing things like how to get your different ending routes, what the content of those ending routes are. So if you have not played the game, please play the game first, or watch my videos of Fairy Fencer Hell, preferably the live streams. I haven't finished the uploading of the episodes of the the recaps. So, if you are a person who hates spoilers, please turn back now. Either go play and beat the game routes themselves, and let me know in the comments section of what you think of the routes, or watch my streams where I play the routes. Or if you don't care about spoilers and are not a complete and utter pussy, let's go and start discussing route by route and what it takes to get to each route. Alright, now we're going to start with the Megami route, and we're going to go with the Japanese, and then I'll explain to you the Japanese route and then the English name for the route. The Megami route, aka the Goddess route. Now this one's very self-explanatory, and this is the route that is originally done in the original Fairy Fencer games, and is the only route in Fairy Fencer games, in the Fairy Fencer F original. Now, here's the thing. There are still some pretty sizable differences in the gameplay that make it immensely easier. Not too easy, because sometimes you can still struggle with Paiga, even if you have 6 members in your party. But it used to be in Fairy Fencer F, the original, that there were only 3 characters in a party. Now, that I would have to find extremely inconvenient, and I could not imagine the amount of grind it would take to beat the fuck out of Paiga. Because if I'm struggling, with like 6 people in the first route, and yes, I did a playthrough where I was struggling with Paiga, but it was on my company channel, because back then my channel had a slight 180-day ban. Now, back to Paiga, I still, first run through of the game, and I was playing on hard mode, I was struggling immensely with Paiga. It was incredible. And I wasn't playing on easy mode, I was playing on hard mode because I generally play on the hardest mode first and foremost, and I didn't download the DLC yet. And I also wasn't level 999, you know? So, basically, the differences are in these different routes is that there are 6 people in a party rather than 3, and that some of the other side characters get more route and development, such as Ethel, and I think maybe even Sherman. And I believe like some Mariana routes or something. I don't know about that specifically. But those are going to be the most common themes in this game. So basically we're going to go and run through the Megami route real quick. From like point 0 to point Z or whatever. Point 0 is in order to get the Megami / Goddess route, you have to pull out less than 7 of the swords from the Vile God. The swords you pull from the Goddess are entirely irrelevant to the story progression, so the only reason why you should ever pull from the Goddess is for experience gain and for the souls that for the fairy souls that you get and bonuses you get from pulling them out of the Goddess. It has no relevance to the story whatsoever. So that being said, you have to pull out less than 7 from the Megami by the time you hit Kavar Desert Sanctuary. And if you do, you will get the original rapey Sherman / Sasuke ripoff Martyr Sherman that you get. Now, by the way, I fucking hate Sherman, so my biggest disconnect with this route was that it focused so much on him as an antagonist. But I have to say it feels satisfying to be able to kill him, first and foremost. Because I fucking hated him. I hated him not because of his, his motive, because I totally get behind the martyr motive, but quite frankly, I hated him because he killed my favorite male character, Zank. My buddy Zank, man. Represented. Anyways, my buddy Zank is absolutely an energizing character. A person you absolutely love to hate, but, some of your personal inner status can be like, I can understand where it comes from on this. Because we all have those people we want to break down to their very core. Whether it's your coworker or your spouse or a sibling you don't like or anything else, you're gonna have somebody in your life you really hate unless you're a complete and utter angel. So, the fact that, Sherman goes and kills Zank really pisses me off. And you keep in mind that when I say goes and kills Zank, it's in the first half of the story, and the story is divided into halves. The first half is pretty much universal up until the Sanctuary part, where you basically go and hunt down story-based fairies, then you go and hunt for the Goddess drop, and then you go to the site, to the Sanctuary, to go and call for a wish upon the Megami. Now, here's where things start to get a little bit different. See, in the Megami route, you don't get your wish at all until a certain point, and you are basically brought into Dorfa's, henchmen. You keep fighting their forces off, and you find out that Tiara dies. Like I said before, spoiler alert. Now, with that in mind, the biggest part of the issue I have with the Fairy Fencer franchise, but it makes sense within the context of the story, is the mulligan. But this mulligan at least makes sense because this is already them unlocking the Goddess, and the Goddess doesn't actually make your wish come true just because you wish for it. It has to be something you desire from the bottom of your heart. And at that point in time, Fang's biggest desire was to save and be, well, not necessarily save because Tiara is still dead in that verse, but to be with Tiara. And you don't really, pay attention to it because, you're still put off by the scene where Tiara's like, please promise me, Fang, that you will never fall in love with me, which at that point he already did, and I did too. Like, at that point, I was already full fucking mast for Tiara. You know how I feel about silver-haired, beautiful-eyed goddesses. She struck every strike zone, the Ojo, the Desuwa, the beautiful voice, the silver hair. Hell, the purple eyes were amazing. Everything about Tiara was amazing, and don't ever let anyone call her a thought if you love her. If you love her, fight for her. Anyways, back to what I was saying. The basic story is that Fang is a lazy protagonist. Now, most people find this annoying and a Neptune clone, but the way he goes about it is he feels like a relatable douchebag that we all are. Because, if, jail didn't have, those consequences like slapping your wrists or, much worse of a punishment in real life, such as, the things that happen in jail, I bet a lot more people would just go to jail for the free food and the free shelter, because there's a lot of homeless people out there who would love that. But, and Fang presents a realistic, real mentality to people. We have all reached that point where we would rather just have the easy life, and we don't have something to fight for. So it starts out with Fang as a complete and utter douchebag, but one of the best things about the Fairy Fencer story is the journey of maturity, not only for Fang, but for Eren as well. And speaking of Eren, you start off the story by unlocking Eren by going all Excalibur on, this fancy looking sword. Am I the only one, by the way, who is annoyed by the fact that the only special looking fairy sword is Fang's sword? Like, don't you think, that if you're gonna have swords with fairies and powers in it, don't you think you should at least put in enough effort to have unique designs, kind of like Bleach does, rather than that transitional, generic looking sword? Like, you would think that in some effort you would, have some effort into putting unique designs. Because, they're not regular swords, they're swords with fairy powers in them. So, what I don't understand is that, why not put in the effort, Compile Heart? But speaking of effort, the soundtrack for Advent Dark Force is amazing. It is so well done, and that's because it's done by Earthbound Papas, probably my favorite video game composer. After all, even though I don't like Final Fantasy that much, they made the Final Fantasy soundtrack. The only soundtrack I think of, the only two soundtracks I can think of that are not done by Earthbound Papas that are the absolute best are Tales of Berseria and Legend of Dragoon. That's not a very large list. So, they're in an elite company for their composers. Now, continuing on with the story, they eventually meet Tiara, who's about, an antagonist for about 30 fucking seconds, and then becomes, the nanny mom who, is the source of success and hard work. And honestly, Fang wouldn't be, as mature without her by his side. And, they slowly but surely build up to, creating a group of friends. With Harley, I absolutely detest because she's a lazy fucking slob and she's just there for boob service. And, anybody who likes girls with guns. I feel so bad for Bajas, man. Albeit I don't, because then he also gets to eat amazing food he makes every day. But, anyways, their main source of antagonism is this group called Dorfa. And here's the thing. In both the Megami and the Jashin route, aka the Vile God route, Dorfa is the main antagonist for it. But I will save the difference between Vile God route and the Evil Goddess route because, the dissonance between the two is absolutely amazing, and I absolutely prefer the Evil Goddess route for reasons I'll mention later. Now, here's the thing. With the Megami route, Dorfa is pretty much the main antagonist, the main source of strife. And the cool thing about it is that their organization is like wolves in sheep's clothing. They are the organization, the corporation that you should fear, behind the scenes and respect in public. Because they go and put effort into their public persona. With Dorfa, Hanagata is the president. Now, they go and they work for the Vile God. They try to revive the Vile God. However, which makes their dynamic interesting is that there is no honor amongst thieves. I'd say the only members of Dorfa that are loyal to the cause entirely is Mariana and Hanagata. That's it. Paiga's loyal more to his wife and his children, and his paycheck, and that's the only reason why he works for Hanagata. Zank is a fucking sociopath and probably wouldn't work for Dwarfa if he knew that there was a possibility he could have all the violent fun and resources he wants without joining Dwarfa. And Bernard's just there to use everybody so he as a descendant of the Vile God, can go and become the most powerful entity in the world and become Vile God 2.0. So, Dwarfa is a, no honor amongst thieves, wolves amongst sheep's clothing. It's a complete contrast of motives that make Dwarfa one of the more intriguing organizations in anime history. It kind of reminds me similar of like maybe Akatsuki, but a little less grandiose in their abilities, and less about Obito and Madara manipulating behind the background. Now they feature as a prime antagonist for the protagonists, and it's a competition for who gets the Furies, and that's what they're called, by the way, Furies. I do apologize if I took a while to say this. I'm a bit disorganized and I'm not writing a script for this. Now, here's where things get interesting though. When Fang, goes back in time, he doesn't fully go back in time. His timeline is moved separate from the universe. So, here's the thing. All the characters that were dead before, still dead. All the characters that Fang travels to are similar, but not exactly the same. And basically, Fang rebuilds from nothing other than Eren. But where things get interesting in the Megami route is the fact that while Hanagata starts out as president, and they eventually lose characters like Zinc and Galdo and Paiga in general, Paiga ends up recruiting Sherman. Because Sherman, in his idea, in his mind, and here's where Sherman and I really have a similar perspective in, philosophy, is that he thinks that in order to bring world peace, he needs to be the ultimate evil and absorb the ultimate evil and be killed. And to sacrifice himself for the sake of world peace. And that's what, connected Tiara emotionally to Sherman, and what allowed Sherman to kill Tiara in the first place, and triggered Fang going back in time. Sherman tried to be the complete and utter martyr motive. He kind of tried to be a mix between Itachi Uchiha and Sasuke Uchiha. But completely, ruined the point and did not really successfully pull it off. And that's where I actually have issue with the Megami. It's pretty bland, it's pretty vanilla, and it really just honestly copies motives and tries to mix them up a little bit with Sherman. Like, he's a hollow version of Sasuke Uchiha, He has no reason to even be a martyr in the first place. If he just was a villain for the sake of being a villain, that'd be more understandable. Like, why does he want world peace? Why does he want, people to not be scumbags? The reason, his motive behind it is because his sister fell to the dark side and became a bandit. That, world peace doesn't solve that. It doesn't solve that before, later, after, or during. World peace doesn't make sense as Sherman's motive. At least with Tiara's motive, the whole world peace thing makes sense because, she's terrified of her own blood, and if world peace, happens, and the Vile God is gone, she doesn't have to worry about her blood acting up anymore. That makes sense. She's a redemption character because she's scared of herself. But Sherman's the most hollow motherfucker in the series. Paiga has more motive and understandability than Sherman does. At least people can, connect with the whole hard-working man. And hell, some people even can get behind the brow-beaten cuck that fucking Paiga is. But, no. At least he makes more sense. At least Bernard and Hanagata make more sense. And Hanagata is fucking hollow and is a fucking figurehead. Sherman's the most hollow character of them all, and I don't just hate, even if I weren't to just hate Sherman for killing Zinc, I also hate him for being a hollow son of a bitch and for disgracing the, martyr motive. It's a noble motive, but the motive doesn't make sense for Sherman. No matter how you rationalize it in the comments section, I can rationalize away from it. Sherman is a complete and utter scumbag. And there's no motive for it. Because no matter what his motives are, his solutions don't fix the problem. The problem with Sherman's sister was that she was a sheltered idiot who bought into the lies that Sherman told her to believe in. You know, she was a sickly girl who was sheltered and had no experience of the outside world. Because he lied to her, she became a bandit and fell to the dark side. That's not going to change anything, even if you come up with a wish. Literally, it would make more sense and he would have more development and respectability if he just said, "But Goddess, I wish for my sister to be happy and whole again. I want her back with me. I want her to be the sister I believed in." That would make him an empathetic character. But no. The entire reasoning, rationale, and result is a hollow, cheap ripoff of every martyr story ever. And yet, somehow, some way, in some wonderful form of Stockholm Syndrome, in the end, Fang starts liking and respecting Sherman while never fully calling him out on his own ideals. He calls him out a little bit, but doesn't fully, call him for what he is. And in the end, it invalidates Fang a little bit. Keep in mind, Fang, as a person, is ended up saved if going through the Megami route at the end, whether he's with Tiara or, Eren. But the one character that cannot be redeemed in any situation in that route is Sherman. Now, we shall go to the Vile God arc, and the arc I consider to be the worst arc for some specific reasons. But first, I shall establish the fact that in order to get the Vile God ending, you have to pull at least 7 swords out before the Kafar Desert Sanctuary. And here's the thing. The problem I have with the Vile God ending isn't necessarily the content. It's the rearranging of the order of the way it's done. It's the pacing and the disjointed and disorganization. I think that the Vile God... The reason why I like the Vile God the least and ranked it the least is because I had some expectations for it, When you're called the Vile God ending, or as I call them, the Jashin ending, you kind of have a lot of expectations and hopes. And I almost lost expectations when I had heard that Sherman would be, like, the main character for a while, but even though I don't like Sherman, I actually kind of dug his little mini-story. I actually dug... Fang being president of Dorfa. That fucking stuff was awesome. I loved, having Fang be the guy that Taiga kowtows to. I love the idea that he's the reason, he's Dorfa's downfall again, but not for being, a hero or protagonist, but because he's just so fucking lazy, decadent, and just downright spending that he would single-handedly bring the financial demise of Dorfa just because he's a fucking idiot. I absolutely love the humor behind that, and I love the concept of it. Like, I have no idea how the fuck Dorfa cannot be 50 million credits in the red after that. That was one of the most humorous aspects of the story. The fact that he tried to, copy pro wrestling and try to bring a fancy intro to himself by bringing bringing smoke and fog, that was great too. That was a great CG. The best parts of the fact was the change of roles and duality in the, ending. Hell, I even enjoyed the fact that Tiara was, being, a delinquent. I love the payout afterwards when she returned to normal and how embarrassed she was about how vulgar she is. I love the idea that it completely mixed things up, but that is also its biggest weakness. And that its biggest weakness is that it's so, different and rearranged that it's not organized, and the pacing makes it too slow. It's a disappointment. Not in the fact that it's terrible content, but the way the content and direction is handled. I would love nothing more than to, really enjoy it, but one of the biggest problems and constant interruptions that I really groaned at were things like Harley, Galdo, and Pippin. The way those 3 were interjected and written throughout the scenes was my major issue. If certain Pippin scenes were shortened and more concise and more meant to be sarcastic Monty Python style, I can get behind that. By the way, what the fuck is Pippin and Pappin? Well, Pappin's not relevant yet until later on in this video discussion, but that's beside the point. But I could just make a total set of videos where I come up with theories of what the fuck Pappin and Pippin are. And I've got some pretty crazy ones, like one of them being that they're Neptunia characters, but for copyright, or like other former franchise characters from other Neptunia series, but to avoid copyright, they hide themselves in suits. And, you know, and there, another one is those Illuminati fucks are actually the people in disguise. Like, the Illuminati fucks are Pippin, Pappin, and they're any entire clan related to them. That's another theory I had just spinning in my mind just now. Both of which would be fucking amazing and intriguing if written correctly. But with, like, you know, and I know you guys are not going to agree with me on this, but we need a lot less Harley. You know, we need a lot less goddamn Harley. I know you big boob lovers out there love her, but I'd be fine with her, you know, big boob wise, if she wasn't a goddamn dependent. Like, guys, come on, be real. When you're, you know, going home from work or your occupation of choice, when you want to lay back and relax with your woman, do you want to be constantly taking care of her needs? Do you want to be cooking for her, cleaning for her, you know, just doing basic stuff that any grown adult woman can do for herself? Would you want to do that, or would you want to be able to lay back, relax, have a romantic conversation, or have just a daily conversation to shoot the breeze with? I'm pretty sure you would probably prefer the latter rather than the former. And that's the problem I have with Harley. She's not that kind of character. She's not. She's just a big-boobed, adolescent appealing idiot who is a dependent. You can, and I'm not saying you can't like Harley. I would personally love to like Harley. She does have an appealing look, but she's just another example of wasted potential. I'd actually say that the character I enjoyed most in that route would probably be, you know, Tiara and Aaron. But one of my favorite things about the Vile God route ending, ironically, was Dorfa's role in it. Because holy fuck was their impact as a villainous organization turned from, like, you know, a level 7 to a level 12. Like, they even have a prison called a Human Ranch. Keep that in perspective. Like, cool thing about Vile God is there were some small, subtle Nazi allegories in there. And if you want, you know, you could totally see them if you know, looked at certain scenes and you're like, huh, this could actually be somewhat of a Nazi reference. But hey, if you think Nazi allegories are bad, just wait until you get to the Evil Goddess route, aka the Akuma route. Anyways, back to what I was saying. Not only was everything about Dorfa dialed up to a 12, which was just wonderful, and even though I hate the way it was done, I still like the idea of Mariana absorbing the Vile God. Because after a while, since Zank died and doesn't have as much of a role inside the Dorfa organization, my favorite started to become Mariana. And she is one of my top 3 waifus in Fairy Fencer. I think it's literally Tiara, Aaron, and Mariana specifically. I might be missing a couple, so I do apologize if your girl was not mentioned, because they do have wonderful designs. It's just, I don't know. Anyways, the Vile God to me is the definition of wasted potential, and I'm not happy about that. I like seeing a story's potential come to full fruition or surpassing my expectations. If you want, by the way, if you want an anime that surpassed my expectations 1,000,000% this season, watch Ryo's Work Is Never Done. I was going to avoid it because I thought it was nothing but lolly bait, but the shogi behind it, even though I don't understand shogi, or probably because I don't understand shogi, I really appreciated the level of human drama involved in that show. But I'll get to that with my I Rank I Rate video series, so look forward to that. Back to what I was saying, You know, the Violet God ending had, Jashin ending had the most potential, and at least with, the Megami ending, I had no expectations from it, because I watched the original game all in one go. No battle scenes, just straight up cutscenes. So I already knew pretty much what exactly we were getting into with that series, and, so I didn't expect much out of it. I didn't expect much change-wise. Now, here's where we get to my favorite one. Because if you thought, the Nazi allegories were bad, let's just wait till we get into the fucking amount of satanic references in the Evil Goddess route. And if you don't believe me that the Evil Goddess route is the biggest allegory to, Satan and the Book of Lucifer, you need no look further than the Japanese name for the Evil Goddess route. And I bet you they changed this in English because they were scared that people would pick up too easily on the context clues that it is a reference constantly to the Book of Lucifer. And that is the fact that, in Japanese, Akuma means devil. Keep that in perspective. That the name of the route is drastically altered for the sake of hiding a pretty vital aspect to this route. Now, if you don't believe me, let's look at the common points of the Evil Goddess route here. Let's look at the what is the name of the organization? Fuck, it always escapes me every time. It's not Dorfa. I know Dorfa is. Septarian Club. There we go. With the Septarian Club, let's look at the Septarian Club here. Now, a lot of the things that the Book of Lucifer talks about, as well as the aspects of Christianity that they abhor, let's look at them. Noe, or not Noe. Let's leave Noe for last. We'll get to him, but he's basically a representation of things like sloth and things like that. But my favorite character to rip on in this section is Junon, and honestly, I'm pretty sure all of you, or at least most of you, are with me in that. Most of us hate Junon. She is the definition of a modern-day thirsty panther cunt. Like, seriously, man. Let's just look at her, She is the most vain, decadent, lustful, arrogant piece of trash you can possibly find in the Fairy Fencer franchise. Even Bernard makes more fucking sense. Especially since Bernard's not such a bad guy in this route. But, let's just look at Junon, for example. She is the embodiment of sin. But, at the same time, she is part of the light side. The supposed Septarian Club, the supposed antagonists, are in the guise of holy crusaders, known as the Septarian Club. Not to mention that, for this wine... Oh, and I'll get into the secrets of the wine later, because that's even worse. Like, once you find out... Like, when I found out that, what the wine was that they drank, I'm like, holy fuck, this is both super Christian and super satanic meta. Like, literally. Now, we look at Sherman, who is like the same self-righteous dick, but isn't as much of a self-righteous dick in the Megami round because he's actually somewhat of good intentions and doesn't have that cheap-ass backstory. Because that cheap-ass backstory about his sister is literally only canon to the Megami route. Because it's never ever added into the original route in the first place, if I remember the sequence of events correctly. Feel free to correct me in the comments if you do see an error in that. I am always willing to improve my content. But back to Sherman, he's less of a self-righteous douche. He's still a bit of a self-righteous douche, but in a different way. Rather than a vengeful self-righteous martyr douche, he's more like a conceited, laid back, lazy, much more holier than thou in a sense of virtue than the other Sherman in the Megami route. And he only functions kind of like Hanagata does in Septarian Club. And, you know, he gets used and abused and defeated by, you know, the crew and Fairy Fencer, and if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, finished up by Noe. Also, what the fuck is with Chiaki? Like, I think Chiaki is literally a gender bend of Sherman, and is that your universe's version of Sherman? By the way, there's another free theory for you, free of charge. You know, there's Chiaki. There's the fact that, you know, there's a reference to the Inquisition, you know, with the whole Galdo situation. There, if I remember right, there is actually a biblical verse where a man is beaten and eviscerated beyond all physical recognition. And if that story sounds familiar to you, welcome to Galdo and the Evil Goddess route, my friends. But yeah, you know, there's a lot of random, like, either intentional or inadvertent references to satanic concepts and biblical concepts. Like, the Evil Goddess route is, I think, intentionally playing upon the fact that, upon their references. And now this is where we get into the reveal, because in the end, it was Junon all along. Because, you know, Mariana pretty much has the power to make everybody her cuckold slave. And if you don't believe me, ask Noe. Who she literally whipped into obedience and started, like, you know, coercing, you know, you with subtle mental techniques to basically turn him into a good guy and her slave. So, in the end, the only bad guy really is Junon, and she revives the Evil Goddess. But here's where things go from biblical to satanic, because it starts off biblical. It starts off biblical with the fact that, you know, they drink the wine, which is the blood of the Evil Goddess. Sounds about right, you know, blood of Christ and all of that. But here's, you know, people who drink the wine gain the power, and it feels like a holy power. But here's where things go from biblical to satanic. See, the power is actually just borrowed and not actually given. In actuality, when you die, the wine you drink, aka the evil goddesses or the Akuma's blood, you send your soul, your motherfucking soul, to the evil goddess for power. That is literally Satan in a nutshell, both in biblical terms and the Book of Lucifer. But it's these weird motives, these intentionally or inadvertently sprinkled references. It's the level of intrigue and just flat out well-written stuff. Like, you know, the Vile God had potential and, you know, had a lot to offer. But from what I had heard from people before I played it, you know, they were giving the Akuma route a complete and utter pass, you know, saying, it's too weird, it's too uncomfortable. You know, mainstream people aren't going to get into it, and honestly, I do agree. I'm not gonna lie, most people won't get into it. But, that's on them, because this is the best fucking route! You know, you can like whatever route you want, and I can like whatever route I want. But holy fuck, in my opinion, is the Evil Goddess route a best fucking route for miles. I will say this though, the Vile God route has the best ending. Like, I want to literally use Fate of Faith as like my theme song forever. Holy fuck, that is a beautiful song. But honestly, all their ending songs are beautiful anyways, but like, Fate of Faith eclipses them immensely. I'll probably link a description in my channel. So yeah. So, in my opinion, I rank it the following. Third place is the Vile God ending. Not because it's bad, but because it has promised potential and it wasted it. And to me, wasted potential is worse than having no potential at all. That being said, second place is definitely the Megami route. I do apologize if this upsets you, because I still think that, you know, overall content-wise, it's, you know, File God ending is better, but the way it's directed and arranged is just horrendous. That's why I'm putting Megami above that. And last but not least, first place by leagues, miles, 20 million leagues under the fucking sea is the Evil Goddess Akuma route. Also, by the way, Evil Goddess route, if you didn't know already, and I didn't know if I told you, you need to know two things. One, here's the thing. You need to be able to pull out 16 swords from the Vile God. With that being said, unless you mod it somehow to where you can get the both of the S-ranked fucking, you know, swords out of the, like the S-ranked sword out of the Vile God and like 15 other swords, you're not going to be able to get it in the first route. The way they have the game designed is that to get the better route, the best route, the Evil Goddess route, you have to actually do a second playthrough. You have to New Game Plus it at least once. Whereas I kind of went from Megami to Vile God to, you know, Akuma. But, like, they, you know, Compile Heart's starting to wise up a little bit, I'd say. If it's developed specifically by Idea Factory and Compile Heart. Because they're starting to really understand the importance of replayability. Replayability is key here. Because, you know, there's no reason, if you don't have a reason in New Game Plus, you've already got a game that's dead in the water. You know, one of the biggest problems with the, you know, original Hyperdimension Neptunia game in like Mark II and even Victory is that the replayability factor was dreadfully low. Which they fixed that in Mega Dimension, because holy fuck, I could play that for eons. But that being said, in my opinion, the route that did it better or did it best, the winner is hands down Evil Goddess route. So, yeah. Alright. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed this Fairy Fencer discussion. I know I've been a bit bad at, you know, keeping consistent Fairy Fencer content. As you probably know that I've been just kind of trying to juggle as many anime series as I possibly can at once. So, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for sticking true in the end. This has been another episode of Who Did It Better by One Man. Like the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you have not already. Click the bell. Consider, you know, donating to my Patreon. Playlist any OSTs of mine that I upload that you enjoy. Come hang out and chat on the live streams. I really want to. I've been really kind of upset and angry and, you know, somewhat sore that I don't have as many people talking and hanging out as I want to anymore. So, it would be really appreciative of that. With that being said, guys, I am One Man. Have a nice day. Never stop loving anime, and I will see you next time.